Zach?
Yes.
Okay, there you have it.
2-1.
Yeah, took always. And the guy's not even here.
I know it.
In trouble.
You're outvoted.
Oh, that was good. Okay, there you go. That one passes. We'll go on to item number 2, which is the proposed budget.
So resolution 25-03 is the proposed budget for 25-26, the year that starts July 1st. And I will just ask, I don't need to go through all these details, I don't think. We have the RDA, the EDA, and the CRA. I'm still calling it CDA. But the 3 different development areas that are part of the RDA, we budget their tax increment funds out. The majority of those funds go back to some commitments that we have within those development areas to different developers and so forth. And some of those funds are also used for affordable housing type projects, and in the RDA in particular are required to be used for that. I don't know if you have any questions related to this budget for 25-26.
Any questions?
Great.
Okay.
And I would just recommend we adopt resolution 25-03.
Excellent. Who wants to make that motion?
I move that we recommend 25-23. 03. Sorry.
25-03
Yeah, I can't read.
resolution.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved in second. Once again, I'll do a roll call vote on this. I'll start out with Zach.
Aye.
Clint.
Aye.
Yes.
And Dave.
Yes.
Okay, there you have it. Okay, well, that pretty much concludes our RDA meeting. So with that, I'll give Kim a minute, and then we'll come out of our RDA and go into our regular scheduled work meeting.
The small. It's
By the way, I failed to mention, I need to excuse
You too.
Tyson.
So
for
moved.
tonight. So if you put that in the meeting, we're not ready for that.
Yeah.
You ready?
Yeah. Okay, let's go ahead and go into our regular work meeting for this evening, which is June 19th. We'll start out with our reports as usual. As far as my reports, I don't have a lot that's gone on in 2 weeks. So, other than, I guess, I think most of you know that Nathan left and Preston is in charge of Wasatch.
Who?
And Preston Lee will be the new director of the Wasatch Integrated.
I thought it was a,
Gal?
yes.
Yeah, she ended up turning it down at the
Oh,
last
okay.
minute.
I hadn't heard that. Okay.
Yeah,
Who's Preston? Was he the lawyer?
no, he was,
He's in their operations.
do you remember when you and I went and did the judging up at the elementary school?
Oh, yeah, no.
That-
Okay, yeah, okay.
So, anyway, that's really about all my reports that I can think of. I haven't had any others. Yeah, that's pretty much it. What about you guys on any of your assignments? I know it's summertime.
Both my meetings are Mondays, so
Yeah.
ramp and the league's board meeting, both on Monday.
Okay.
Well, I was in Bryce Canyon.
Yay!
We had a good time at the Utah Prevention Summit. And just to remind everybody what that's for, all of the coalitions in the state who focus on prevention work for youth, and that's prevention of drug and alcohol use and also suicide, come together every year and kind of understand more about the science, the brain science, like the mayor was in a video that was talking about brain science and how substances affect young people and the ages at which they start to affect them. And so we had a really good conference. There were about, I think, either between 7 and 10 just from our coalition who were able to go.
Yeah.
And then there are 3 other Davis County coalitions that Megan, our former coordinator, is the coordinator over all 4 of those. And with Davis County, I think that we had about 37 attendees.
Wow.
So we had a really nice turnout. And we had a really good presentation on just some of the logic models that we use to decide like what programs are good for our area. And we use the data to see what's happening, what are the kids telling us is going on, and then we use that to determine the programs that will best support families and youth. And so we get some really good information from the conference, and also specific to the brain science piece, they now have enough data and research to be able to connect substance or alcohol use with suicide. So that was something that I know, Mayor, when you first brought
Yeah.
CTC on, we
Right,
were really
that was-
concerned about the suicide prevention piece. And now there's enough data to be able to support. So all of our substance prevention activities can also be used directly for suicide prevention. And so we can work on those together, which most of us figured that was happening, but you have to have data to prove things before you start saying things and using funding for that. So that was a really good piece that we got out of the conference. But yeah.
By chance, did they talk about screen time with kids? Because I know that that's a big thing that really we need to make everyone aware of, the impact of screen time, especially at a young age. And then I think Amy Winder Newton is on that board, that they figured out exactly, no more than like from age 1 to 5, it shouldn't be more than an hour.
I think there was one piece to that. I don't have all the details on it, but we did do our screenagers screening last fall that spoke to that as well. And so we do have the data, and this brain science campaign, we're going to have a debrief in a couple of weeks, the coalition, to kind of talk about what we learned and what we can bring back to the community, specifically to parents, and how the kids' minds work. And all of our minds are very special, but how they work and how the addictive behaviors are not just for substances, which is what that Screenagers film was about as well.
Right, yeah, that's good. Well,
So yeah, it was really good.
That's good. I'm glad you had a good time down there, and with good networking, it sounds like, which
Yeah,
that's
it
what
was.
really makes all these programs, rather than have duplication, you can work together and kind of make sure you make good use of everybody's funding that way. Okay, anyone else have any reports?
Yeah, so UIA, the board, we approved the $14 million bond to fund capital projects moving forward. They found that that is a really good revenue generator. There's lots of consolidation in the fiber network world nowadays because it's harder to build because of prices and competition. And so they've seen it work. They did it last year, and it had a good outcome in terms of revenue. So they're doing it again this year. The idea is that as time goes on, that we have these figures that show kind of where debt obligations are and where revenue is, and we continue to be having revenue outpace where debt obligation is, which is always a good stat. Net growth of over a month of 1,000, so it's pretty cool to have that happen in a single month. I did have one other note that we're going to continue to increase the dividends back to the city, which we have been doing, pretty good lump sum last year. That's going to increase this year as well. And the hope is that there are a couple of debt obligations that will be fulfilled or satisfied in a few years, which will allow those payments to increase even more. So the idea of being able to kind of continue to get our return on investment for being early on continues to bear good fruit. So no problems, no worries. It was a good meeting with the board. So good.
How long did you say they got that bond for?
I'm not sure the time on it. It was for $14 million. And it wasn't tied to, I don't believe it was tied to like any of the cities in terms of our own current bond obligations.
Okay.
Yeah, it was independent of that. It was just more of like a way to generate capital to help when they go out to bond again, so that the UA bond ratings can increase, because they had a good rating last time, and they continue to do that. It will be beneficial moving forward. Did you have anything you want to add on that, Alex? Anything that
No, I think that's correct.
Okay.
I don't think it's correct. It is correct the way that Zach has framed it. It's being used to fund connections. So in the past, the original debt funded the infrastructure. And then there's a delay. You build the infrastructure, and then it may be a few years before the connections take place and then you generate any revenue. But recently, the UIA debt has been, they found it to be, as Zach said, very strategic in funding the connections because the return on investment is very quick,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
As soon as you make that connection, you can start generating the revenue because there's such a demand for it. So they found that to be a very effective approach, where something used to build the infrastructure per se, just that last mile connection which generates the revenue.
Good.
Are those the dividends each year? Is that based on connections as well, how large the networks are in the cities? Or is it, here's the lump sum, cut it into equal shares for each of the original cities?
Yeah, there's a percentage allocation to each of the cities based on their original membership and participation. It's not based on connections, and that's what they've used. And then the boards will decide what the excess revenue is and then how much will be given back to the cities in the form of a dividend. And on the Utopia side, we've had the same discussions that Zach talked about, is that some debts, pretty significant debt amounts are going to drop off here in the next couple of years. And so the idea is that those payments would be ramped up significantly.
Yeah.
And ours continues to grow. Ours is growing from last year to this year. I think it's about $85,000. So the cities are very interested in, obviously, the boards again to give that money back, push that money back to the cities.
Good. Well, that was the original intent, so
Yeah.
that's good to hear. Okay. If there's no other reports, then let's go ahead and move on to item number 3, which is an amendment to adopt the budget for fiscal year 24-25. Tracy's dad.
So again, I won't go through all the detail of these. These are the amendments to our 24-25 budget. I apologize that I overlooked bringing these to you mid-year, and so there's a lengthy list for the end of the year. In summary, we had in the general fund, we had just over 1.8 million in net additions or reductions to the budget. 500,000 of that was appropriation of fund balance. 1.1 million was from revenue that was unanticipated. And so you've got, if we look down here just a little ways in this revenue area, we have these that were use of fund balance. Then mixed in here are revenues that were unanticipated, which are things like wildland fire, police special services that we charge entities for, the fire academy, and then other small donations that come in. And then we had 179,000 and a little bit in grant revenue that was unanticipated as well that we needed to recognize so that it could be added into the budget. I don't know if just up front, as you look through these, are there any questions that you have that you need me to address?
I think I have just one question, not specific to any item here, but because the way that we do the budgets are very lean, right, to make sure that we have what we need. When you have overages like this, we just put it in the general fund, but how does that assist if there are other things that need to be looked at? Like what are the options? What do we do with that?
When we have, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I didn't hear the whole question.
So you're talking about if there's excess revenue that comes in,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, then we just let that flow back into the fund balance.
And
Makes
then
sense.
just use that
And then
for
use the next year.
budgeting for the next year.
Yeah.
So that we can make sure that we're still, close to where we want to be as far as expenses and, what we're trying to budget.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, any excess revenue, we don't, now there's been a few times through the years where there will be a project that will come up mid-year that was unexpected that the council may say, we need to take care of this, and so we can draw on those funds. But typically we don't, because we have more money come in the specific year, the staff doesn't try to, we're very budgeted for those things that we need, and typically don't come back asking for additional money unless it's something that's driven by you guys. We just let them go to the bank, and and then next year that money's available to be part of the broader discussion, so you're considering all the priorities and not just.
And we earmark it as excess from the year prior or something of that nature, or does it just go into the
It
budget?
just flows into that fund balance, it builds the fund balance.
And maybe to clarify, out of this, well, I apologize, I thought I had the summary page here, but here you can see this 1.8 million general fund. Well, of that, there was only 500,000 that was use of fund balance. The rest of it was new revenue that flowed in, right? And of the 500,000, 300,000 of that is me just correcting an error that I made. So it wasn't, the money was in the budget. I inadvertently took it out when I set the original budget in our system. And so in order to get it back in, because of the way our system is set up, I have to do an official amendment in the system. So really, you only had about 200,000 in general fund balance that was spent in addition to what was approved when we did the original budget. So even though that number looks large, most of that is covered by funds that are coming into the city, and then we're appropriating them to their areas. Okay. So if there aren't any questions, then in
Just
the...
a
Oh, yeah,
quick,
go ahead.
just a thought that these amendments versus the total of the general fund for the year, what percentage of what? What would that be? 2%,
Well, it's
1%?
close to 2 million out of almost 50 million, so whatever percentage that is. It's not a big percentage, right? Okay, then I'll just present this ordinance in the regular meeting for your approval.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very good. Okay. Well, we'll go on to a presentation for the Victims of Crime Advocate, so,
That's Chrislyn.
Kristen.
Okay, so this is just a presentation on our VOCA funds, just kind of an update. We have our VOCA funds separated into housing and then just victim services. So I'll start first with housing. I'm Chrislyn, and then Kelly, he is also a victim advocate, and then he's also our housing advocate. So that's just our contact information there. So for the 24-25 year, we were awarded $40,000 for our housing. In that year, we helped 21 different victims receive funds. 52 services were provided for those 21 victims. So there were certain times where a victim would receive rent for more than 1 month, and then sometimes they would receive multiple services, so they'd get rent and their utilities paid for a month. So some of the things that we can pay for under VOCA, we can pay for relocation if they need to move. We can help with some of those expenses. Safety enhancement, so if their window was broken during a crime, we can pay to replace the window. We can pay to help them get legal documents if they need to, like replace their social security. We can pay for rent. We can also pay for utilities, transportation, transportation to various things. So if they need to go to court dates or if they just need to get out of town, we can help pay for stuff like that. Sometimes we'll pay for hotel rooms as well, and then just any other needs based on approvals. Some things that we cannot pay for under VOCA, we can't pay for mortgages. We can't pay for any late fees. We also don't pay rental deposits, and then our payments cannot go directly to the victims. They have to go to an agency. So one of our success stories that we had with our housing program, we had a victim that was assaulted, and it resulted in severe bodily injury. So she had to have multiple surgeries, which caused her to miss work, and she gained a lot of medical bills from that. She owned her house, so we weren't able to pay her mortgage, and unfortunately her bills were just so high, so we couldn't pay all of that. But we were able to pay some of her utility bills for a few months, just to kind of take the edge off and help her focus on some of the other things. So in total, the past year, our housing program paid for $2,000 towards bills for her to help her and her husband out. So unfortunately, VOCA did cut funds this year. So in total for 2025 to 2027, we were cut $63,000. That equals out to almost $32,000 a year. So with that, unfortunately, that kind of cuts out our housing program a little bit. So that's leaving us with only about $8,000 each year for our housing now. So in order to accommodate for these cuts, we're going to have to kind of shift our focus. We're not going to be doing as much rent and stuff like that. We're going to be focusing more on emergency things, such as if there's safety enhancements, like their lock was broken during a invasion or something, pay for that. If they need an emergency hotel, and just kind of focusing more on that. And then our housing advocate, Kelly, he'll be doing a little bit less work on that end, so he'll be helping me more with some of the victim stuff. So attending court, writing protective orders, giving referrals, and we're also looking into doing some more outreach with our community to give some information and sources. And then this is just a little bit more about just our victim services in general. For 2024 and 2025, I don't have official numbers yet because the year is not over, but we've helped approximately 1,000 individuals so far. This includes supporting them through the court process, so sometimes we attend court hearings with them, advocating for them during interviews with law enforcement or prosecutors, informing them of their rights, dates of important hearings, and just kind of informing them on the whole criminal justice process and walking them through that. We provide a lot of referrals to other victim service agencies if we're unable to help, and then also non-victim service agencies. We assist with safety planning and then also writing protective orders. And then one of just our overall success stories, we had a victim. She had a protective order against her ex-husband, and he continually violated that protective order. At the end of 2024, he reached out to law enforcement officers and made threats towards her life. So just due to the relationship that our victim advocates had with her, she was able to trust us enough to come to us and ask for help. With the help of our prosecutors, we were able to get him arrested, and he spent 6 months in jail for those threats that he made. And during those 6 months, the victim was able to sleep peacefully every night. Her children began to excel in school and reach out to friends again. And they were just able to work on healing from the years of abuse. So it was really good. And then we just want to thank you guys for your support. This is a really important program, and me and Kelly are really passionate about what we do and the people we help. So does anyone have any questions or comments?
Any questions?
I have one question. On that first success story, you were talking about the victim who had like a mortgage, so we couldn't help pay for that. And then you said something about her husband. Was her husband involved as well, or was that no?
That's what I was.
Just wondering.
So her husband was not the abuser. It was one of her friends' husbands was abused her, and so that was where. And so we just helped her family in general to get through some bills, because her husband has been very supportive throughout the process. So he's also had to miss a lot of work, and so we just helped them out a little bit.
Thank you. I didn't need all the details. I just wanted to make sure that he wasn't.
Yeah.
I'm like,
we don't help pay for that.
That was my first thought.
So thank you for that clarification. And also you said that you and Kelly work with other agencies.
Mm-hmm.
There are a number of agencies I'm sure you're already aware of, but there's a lot of coalition work that's being done to try and help with the work that is being done in the community already. And I can get with you just to make sure that you have the connections that you
absolutely.
Like Boulder Way Forward is one, and we're connecting lots of organizations to kind of help women, children, and families to move forward in positive ways. And so,
yeah, that would be awesome. I'd love to get with you on that. So.
Well, let's hook up.
Perfect. Thanks.
So go ahead, Jen.
I was just going to say, with the limited funding, I get the fact that you're going to cut back on your housing, but how do you feel that's going to impact the overall program? Because obviously as our population grows, these type of crimes grow as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely going to have an impact, and we are worried about that. And we have plans to assess how that's going to impact us and what our need for it really is. The only other agency that has a housing program in our area is Clearfield, and they also got cut significantly. So unfortunately, I think our community is going to see some big impacts from that.
So with the funding being cut, how do you decide who gets the funds? Do you have can you tell your procedures about how you decide who gets to get assistance?
Yeah, so we are currently working on that right now. We're working on adjusting our policies on how we divide out assistance, but as of right now, our goal is to kind of focus more on the super urgent situations, like stuff that has victimization that has directly impacted their financials and stuff like that. So like I said a little bit in the presentation, if there's like a home invasion and some locks were broken, we're going to pay that to fix their locks over just somebody's rent where they can get rental assistance elsewhere. So we're going to be focusing more on the emergent situations.
Do you have more, I'm sure you probably know, I think I know the answer, but I want to ask anyway. Are there more people that are requesting services than you have funds to allocate to?
Yes, absolutely.
And is there anything regarding like restrictions on who can receive those funds? Or is it anybody that comes in and asks?
No, so there are restrictions. We try to do it if the crime occurred in Layton is typically what we're doing. Sometimes we will do just if they're living in Layton, but we do have a Layton-based program.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So economic stability, so that, I mean, obviously someone who can afford to replace their own locks should probably.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Got a question?
Sure.
I think last year you mentioned a program to help with identity. Was it phone numbers or voting or?
I think that was,
Or was that something else?
That was Isabel.
Isabel, okay.
Yeah.
But it was, how was that, sorry.
No, you're good.
How is that coming? Has that been helpful or have you used it?
I don't know.
It was a new program, and when she presented it, we had not used it yet, and I don't know if it had even been rolled out yet. It was just in the process. I'm not sure how they've used it. I think it was the where basically you can get your mail forwarded to a different address, and then they take it and get it to you so that you can be more anonymous.
Oh, so yeah,
That's
so
trackable.
the Safe at Home program. So yeah, so we do have that. You have to be, in order to apply for it, you have to work with an advocate, and I'm not sure if Kelly is certified, but I am in the process of getting certified to work with that.
Good.
And if you choose to do that, you have to be recently moved within the last, I believe it's 2 months or something like that. And then you can apply for that program, and they will give you a fake address, and all the victims have the same address, and then all their mail and stuff, they can put that on any legal documents they need to, schooling, work, anything like that. And so then all their mail will go there, and then they will send their mail out. So then the hopes of that is to just avoid their abuser from finding them.
Thanks.
Good question.
Just the second scenario, it said that they were doing better because he was in jail. So what happens when he gets out?
Unfortunately,
I mean,
yeah.
so they just,
So they do still have a protective order,
Right.
which is nice. And then we hope that in jail they do get some support that kind of helps them kind of rehabilitate back into the community. And then she does still have that protective order that does protect her too.
protective orders don't go very well, that I know of. And so it just, I mean, I don't know, it just seems like now you start over, and maybe that's the case with everything, but it's not very good.
Yeah,
But that's
unfortunately
just
there
the way it
can be
is.
some upgrades in our system. We do
Yeah.
have a little bit of a flawed system, so.
Yeah.
Well, the big thing is that you're at least doing what you can with what you
Yeah,
got, right?
you do what you can,
So
that's
I'm
true.
just saying, continue to forge ahead and certainly protect those that you can.
Yeah, we take the little wins and.
Yeah.
And I would say that
you do.
in that particular circumstance, that was 100% to Chrislyn and Mark from our office, one of our prosecutors. They absolutely put in the extra effort to get that, to make that happen. There were other agencies that could have taken action that didn't. And it was only because of Mark and Chrislyn that we got that result.
Good.
Make sure, tell Mark thanks for us too. Okay.
One more, sorry. Is that okay?
No, you're fine.
On the funding, it's been cut. I'm sure crimes just haven't stopped. Where the money comes from federally. Is there something being done to lobby federally from?
I think
Or is
federally
this-
there's a this has been anticipated for a couple of years now. There's been a lot of discussion about it, and yes, there are some pretty heavy lobbies that are happening back in Washington that are trying to continue to support this, and we'll see how it goes.
Was this the funds being cut, just spreading it out more, or just?
It was just a cut to the program. Like I said, this has been talked about for 3 or 4 years now, probably 2, 3, 4 years. And so we knew it was coming. And honestly, I have not looked at all of the numbers across the board, but it seems like we might have been impacted less. And I think I'm reading that as they see the value in the program that we offer, and we offer a lot. And we do a lot with our program. And so I think we were cut less than some other programs.
Which agency does it come from? The money?
Department of Justice?
Yeah.
Justice.
Department of Justice, yeah.
Well, the average is one a week, basically, that you're doing something one week.
Yeah.
All right. You guys good?
Just one
Thank
other,
you.
just a quick clarification on, when she's talking about emergency funds, our office works hard, and the victim advocates work hard to make sure that everybody receives restitution. These are just more immediate. We will always seek it through our outcomes, whether it's through a negotiated plea or through a trial or whatever. We always seek the restitution, but that can take months or even years
Yeah.
for them to get that back. So these funds are used differently just for emergency circumstances that can be utilized in extreme circumstances.
Well, that's good. Okay,
Well, thank you so much. I
Yeah,
appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Sure. $6.51.
Okay, let's go on to a fun topic here, Dogs in Park Study. I know Joellen's presenting, but you've got support here from others, so this is one we're looking forward to, because I know you guys always go into depth on your studies when we ask for it.
That was a compliment.
Yeah, that was a compliment, is what I'm saying. We know that, and that's why I'm not doing good. And I'm looking forward to it,
I
sorry.
know, I'm just making sure that you can't, I know that was a compliment, I just wanted her to know that.
Thank you so much.
Beforehand.
Well, we're grateful to be here and to share information about dogs in parks. Obviously, we won't be able to share all that we know tonight, but we'll do our best in just providing an overall understanding of what we've been learning about. So tonight, we'd like to share with you options for introducing dogs into parks. The top one is on leash, letting dogs in parks on leash. This is what we do presently in our city, and it's just to allow dogs on our trails, open space, and parks areas with their owners to be able to get exercise, socialize, and play. There is another option out there, dogs in parks off leash. And within that category, there are 3 options that can be provided: the fenced, off-leash fenced area, the off-leash shared use park area, and the off-leash open space trail corridor area. And we will touch briefly on each of those types so you can understand what that is. Oh, this is good. So this is our Dogs in Parks case study. It's not
See, I knew you went into depth on this.
it's not fully every city we touched in on, but we've looked at numerous counties on the Wasatch Front and listed what their services are provided for dogs in park. On the right-hand side, these are all color-coded in relation to those labels on the right side. No dogs in park, on-leash, and then the off-leash options.
just looking at Davis County, Layton, we are comparable to Farmington and Centerville. They do allow dogs on parks on leash. Our exemption is we do not allow them at Ellison and Commons Park. Kaysville, they do not allow dogs in parks, in any of their city parks, except for one, the Wilderness Park, where they do allow them on leash. So back in 2016, we passed an ordinance to permit dogs in our parks on leash, and this map here to the right shows our neighborhood parks, our pocket parks, and our trail systems. Everywhere that we do provide that option for dog owners to go with their dogs and enjoy those open spaces. Some of the benefits that this provides is the dogs are controlled on leash with their owners, and also for park users who do not feel comfortable having dogs in the park, they feel at least comfortable knowing that they're on a leash. Some of the challenges that we experience is there are small groups of people that will not follow the rules and they let their dogs off leash. And another challenge is that dogs are not able to run at their own speed and play fetch and have independent social interactions with other dogs. Presently, this is what we do offer in our parks. The amenities that we offer, and to the right you'll see a chart that provides the site features that are provided to be able to allow dogs on leash. We have parking, restrooms, signage, doggy potway stations, benches, trees, and pathways and trails for them to be able to walk along with their dogs. We do our best effort to make sure they're clean and that they're accessible. And this is a capital improvement cost that comes at no cost to you. We already are doing this, and it's built into our budget each year. The maintenance tasks, this is really important to understand. This is something that our park staff is doing every day diligently to make sure our parks look presentable for all who may come to the park to enjoy it. They're emptying the refuse cans for the doggy waste stations, putting new baggies in, going throughout the park thoroughly, looking for any fecal droppings that have not been picked up by dog owners, and then just replacing anything that might have been damaged. And this is a maintenance cost that comes at no change in cost. This is built into our system and something that we do provide right now.
Do you want questions afterwards?
Whatever you'd like, I'm happy.
I'm just curious, on this particular one, have you guys noticed how is this being used or abused? Because I do know that on occasion I've gotten complaints about dog waste.
Overall, this has been very successful. Almost 10 years ago, when, as Joellen said, we put this in place, and we did it because the majority of dog owners at that time, this was the preferred option. They simply wanted to walk with their dogs. This is one of the most highly used aspects of our parks.
Okay.
If you go to any park, you will see people out there with their dogs on leash. It's the outliers that Joellen mentioned.
But are they using the waste as well?
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
Got it.
We have,
Yeah, an
a
outlier.
couple people, but most of the time, our parks employees have reported back that they do use those bags.
And just adding to what Dave said, this is very successful for us. We feel like we're servicing most of the people well with dogs on leash. Now jumping into off-leash options, we'll talk about free. This is the fenced area first. Just to introduce, what does that mean? It's a designated area, usually has a 6-foot tall fence perimeter, and even it can be broken down into 2 or more spaces provided for small or large dogs to have their own spaces and uses. Surfacing varies. Sometimes it's native ground, sometimes it's grass, gravel, or hardpack. This is an example in Dayland Dog Park down in Draper. And I have another example of one. This is in Sandy. This just illustrates a little bit more about some of the amenities that are provided in a fenced off leash area. They typically have a dog watering station, boulders, and seating for dog owners to be able to sit by while their dogs are out running. So this is, with each of these we'll be talking about the capital improvement costs, and then also your operational costs both are important to consider, both just the improvements up front and then being able to be sustainable and take care of those long term. So with the off-leash fence areas, this is a high capital improvement cost. To introduce facilities such as this, particularly in Layton, we're looking in the $1 million range. Some of those amenities that would need to be included would be a parking lot to just accommodate those who come to the site, restrooms, signage, the fencing that I mentioned, walking paths, and then surfacing and shade, and possibly dog amenities. The operational costs, these are also very high. This would be about $12,500 annually per acre. And these are some of the tasks that would be needed to be addressed on a regular basis to make sure that this off-leash fence area is presentable and of a standard that we would be proud of having in our community. It includes, as we do with our typical neighborhood parks right now, just emptying the refuse cans and recycling new bags. It also includes disinfecting and removal of fecal droppings, and then fixing any broken signs, filling in holes dug by dogs, and then repairing the surfacing treatment, whether that's grass, granite, sand, etc. This picture to the right is a constant battle that you would have with an off-leash fence area. The grass does not do well. So it's something that we would be constantly having to repair.
So so the slide before, this, okay, that's to set it up.
Yes.
And then the next list is the
Operational.
operation.
Yep.
And that was the same location that where these pictures are from?
They're a collection of different photos. Yeah. So in summary, a fenced, off-leash fenced area, some of the benefits that it does provide is it allows a space for dogs to be able to exercise and run at their own speed. They can play fetch, and they have independent social interactions with other dogs. Some of the challenges that we have observed is a very high increase in capital improvement costs. Like I mentioned, we're in the $1 million range to be able to introduce this into the city. And the operational costs, that ongoing cost that would be a commitment we would have to carry on each year is also high. The investment is dedicated only for dog owners, and I think it's really important to make note that the high concentration of dogs in one location can increase potential dog conflicts, noise, and smell. So making sure that it would be located in an appropriate place is very important to consider.
Is that $1 million, are you taking into consideration the actual cost of the ground then?
No,
Or is that just the improvements wherever the ground is?
correct?
All right, gotcha.
And we assumed at this level that it's a park large enough to accommodate a city of our size. Because it's the restrooms, the parking lots, those are big expenses.
So about how many acres are you talking about?
I think, Joan, we're looking at 5 acres.
That's a good average. We have more information on that, but to get a park that would service Layton right, we would want to have at least 5.
Are there disease problems with dog parks as well, with the dogs themselves?
Transfer of disease?
Yeah.
Yes.
Like,
Mhm.
no, okay.
Second off-leash option is shared use park area. This is kind of a newer thought. Not many cities do this. Logan and Salt Lake do, from the studies that I reviewed. This is an example of Lindsay Gardens in Salt Lake up near the avenues next to the cemetery. Basically, it's a typical park, neighborhood park, and they just find an area within the park that's underutilized, and it will just be marked off with simple sign. There are no fencing,
fences, yeah.
and it's basically, it could be even just hours or days of the week where it's open for dogs to be off leash. Capital improvement costs are pretty minimal. For example, here at Lindsay, this is just the signage that would need to be put up, and then doggy potty stations around the perimeter to provide accommodations for them to keep it clean. Operational and maintenance costs. This is a medium cost. You're looking at about $10,600 $10,670 annually per acre. Biggest thing is just making sure, because obviously we're using a shared site, and so there will be high diligence in making sure their holes are filled in by dogs that potentially may have been digging, and then keeping the grass up to a standard that we would be proud of for our parks as well. So in summary, benefits for a shared use park area. Once again, dogs are able to run at their own speed and will, and play independently. The areas selected for shared use hours are during underutilized times, so it provides a multi-purpose use overlay in parks. And another benefit is the area is usually already improved, and there's just a lower capital improvement cost. Challenges, this is where it's important to take into mind park users who have come to these parks now may feel uncomfortable interacting with dogs who are also in the park during those hours, and they could possibly not come anymore during those times of use. Moderate increase in operational costs is a challenge, and then public perception. You may have uneducated citizens that may see a dog over in one area of the park off a leash and think, oh, it can be anywhere in the park, and so there will be a big challenge with educating if you introduce that. And then also dog waste. And then simply some people just will not follow the rules, and their dogs will wander outside of those designated off-leash areas into conflict areas such as parking lots, playgrounds, pavilions, basketball courts, etc. And then we enter into the issues of liability here in the city. Dogs in parks off-leash is a third category that we learned about. This example is in Salt Lake County, Harley's Historic Nature Park off-leash trail area. Basically, it's a trail system that's open to users to bring their dogs and take them off leash, and they are able to use those trails as well. So the capital improvement costs, they are medium. You're looking in the 6-digit number with providing those improvements. Potentially you would need to build a parking lot if it was a new trail site area, restroom, signage, trail development, and then your servicing and possibly shade. This is just a picture of an example of signage that they did at Parley's Historic that shows the designated dog areas and the trail systems that are within that. So then operational costs for those off-leash open space trail corridor areas are low, around $5,560 annually per year. Many of the same tasks that were mentioned before. One thing to add though to this is just the maintenance of native vegetation, making sure that that site does not get overrun or overused is important to keep in mind. Interesting story, this picture of the dog with a backpack on his back. This was an article I read, actually it was in England, so it's not in our area, but they had a big trouble with their open space being overused, and they actually introduced backpacks that the dog owners needed to put on their dogs when they came into the site, and then they put seeds in the backpack and they would sprinkle seeds as they were walking around to try to help revegetate it. So I thought that was kind of interesting or creative.
That is.
So in summary, open space trail corridor areas are some of the benefits. The dogs are allowed off leash with their owner. Once again, they're able to run at their own speed and play. The benefit here is it's a low increase in operational costs. Some of the challenges is that, once again, those park users or trail users, I should say, will feel uncomfortable interacting with dogs, with those who don't feel comfortable with dogs off leash, and they will stay away. The moderate increase in capital improvement costs, and then once again, that public perception. Education is a big factor to be able to help people understand what we're doing. And then the environment damage, making sure that those sensitive native areas are not at risk of erosion. And then I think it's really important to keep in mind is the conflict with cyclists, strollers, and then mobility challenge. You may have a child or even an older person that maybe doesn't have the balance typical as a normal person would have, and and being potentially bumped up by a dog as it may be just playfully saying hello could knock them over. And so there's a lot of challenges with that. So in summary, here is just a snapshot of the capital improvement costs and then your operational maintenance cost comparisons. You're welcome to just look at that for a moment. But I just want to bring to your attention at the bottom are on-leash dogs in park. If we continue in this way, there's no change in cost, and we continue as we're doing. So here's a question for you that we studied: is what are our neighbors doing with introducing dogs in parks? Most of the people in our area do allow dogs in parks on leash. Like I mentioned, Farmington and Centerville are just like us. Dogs must be on leash in parks. And like I mentioned, Kaysville, they do not allow dogs in parks except for that one wilderness park area. But these others that I have displayed here include up into Roy, South Ogden, South Weber, and then our neighbors to the west of us, and then Bountiful down below. In addition to permitting dogs on leash in their parks, they have introduced, of the options I've described today, an off-leash fenced area. So that's the first type that we talked about, if you remember. Driving time to one of these. Overall, your average drive from Layton will take about 16 minutes. We just picked locations in the northeast, south, and west sides of Layton, and then looked on Google how much time it would take to get to each of these sites and took the average. So average is 16 minutes. And then down below in that image that's just showing Layton boundaries, just getting from north to south or east to west, on average it takes us about 12 minutes. If you're within your city, driving from one end to the other, it takes about 12 minutes to get to the other side. So for 4 minutes more of drive time on average, you can get to an off-leash fenced dog park for one of our neighbors. So in summary, we just want to bring you back to where we are right now with allowing dogs on leash. We feel we're doing a good job. For the majority of people that are here in our community, this is what they're doing and using. We do recognize there's a small group of people that are requesting for some service of an off-leash option for dogs in parks. Are there any questions at this point before I move forward?
Are you going to talk about any of the health concerns? Like, is that a part of the presentation?
Oh, I don't have specifics about that for right now, but we could certainly circle back at another time about that.
And my other question is for those neighboring areas that you did reach out or that you researched, were you able to talk with any of them and just get their feedback on, I mean, I know some of these are newer, some have been in operation for a while, so just getting some of their feedback on their experience.
Yes, we specifically spoke with Bountiful Dog Park that they provide, and he said, don't do it. He is struggling, they are struggling.
What about Syracuse? I know they just recently opened, and then what happened there?
Well, they're brand new. I think they had their ribbon cutting ceremony 2-3 weeks ago, fairly new. I do know how much it cost to improve that site. It's 1.25 acres, and it was around just a little under $500,000 to provide that service.
And a caveat there is we've talked to the operation wing of these cities. I'm sure there is some political benefit that we may not be aware of at each of the cities. Operationally, they're difficult, but you know, we do hard things. It's okay. In Farmington, they had one, and they took it out because of the effort that it took compared to the number of people that it benefited. And they chose, when they developed the sports park, they chose not to put it back in.
That was one of my questions, Dave, was whether someone had put it in and then taken it out.
What? Go ahead.
My daughter lives in Salt Lake, and City Creek Canyon, Mill Creek Canyon, and up in the avenues as well. They have, in the trail system, they'll have dog on-leash days and off-leash days, so it's not, it alternates. And so she's happy on the on-leash days and not happy when people are off-leash on the on-leash days, but it's understood that, and I guess in those canyons, you kind of have a natural barrier. And I'm thinking, in the city, we have a couple of wilderness-type areas that I don't know if you thought about that sort of deal with alternate day
Yeah.
in an area that we're familiar with.
Yeah, I'd be happy to share some more information that I think will address what you're
Okay.
asking about. So the question came, what if we were to introduce an off-leash option for dogs in park, and we would look toward the trail corridor area option. And those images to your left, the Salt Lake Clint, is the Memory Grove area, Freedom's Trail. They do have that up in the avenues where the dogs are allowed off leash in certain times and areas up there. And then the Parley's one. But in our city, the question was, what could that look like if we were to do a trail off leash option? So the colors that I have shown here, the green, there's one area of trail system that could possibly serve as a designated off-leash area, and that's the Bamberger Trail. I have some pictures that'll zoom in a little bit more on that down the road. Then there's also some proposed designated off-leash areas, the orange future trail areas that would be a consideration to look into. The UP&L Corridor Trail out east. Then there's the Mid-Fork Trail System, and then there's the Holmes Creek Reservoir Trail System. And then that little sliver that's in yellow, that's a trail system that's presently under construction. Phases of that are being implemented, and that's the East Ridge Nature Park area, 16 acres that's part of that development. There's plans for trail system development in that area. And we'll talk a little bit more about that.
The restroom's already there.
Yeah,
The parking.
the restroom is just about completed. Now, if an off-leash dogs in park option was provided, it's really important that within our city we provide the right size. Our neighboring cities are a lot smaller compared to our boundaries, and so you'll notice that most of the other communities, their park sizes are less than 2 acres typically, and they service around a 2-mile radius. We here, because we're bigger, would be better to have a larger service area. So looking at those sizes, average size for an off-leash for our community, we would probably want to shoot between the 5 to 7 acre space. It's really important that we get the right size if that's what you choose to do, so that we prevent overcrowding, conflicts between animals, the environmental damage, and then unsatisfied user groups, not only for the dog users, but also for those who are there for other purposes. So that's important to be able to have a successful off-leash service. So putting those areas of trails within our city, you can see that there would be access across the city, and it also would be able to provide services to accommodate our size of community. So Bamberger Trail, that was one I mentioned is an existing trail system that we have. So here we are at our city center right now. And the Bamberger is just to the left of us. It travels on the east side of I-15, and here it is just zoomed in. This is the area that could possibly serve as a off-leash open space trail corridor area. It's about 7 acres, and it is a 0.6 mile trail ride length of user using it. And here's a picture of what that looks like. I'm not sure if you've been there, but that's what it looks like. It's fenced on both sides and an open trail corridor. And then the other one that I mentioned, the East Ridge Nature Park, that's 16 acres. Currently, we're just finishing up the bathroom. There is a trailhead parking lot that's been installed, and we have an asphalt trail that's stubbed up down to here. Next phase for this would be to introduce the trail systems. There would be a trail system on the north side, and then there's the Caves Creek corridor that buffers between the two, and then there would be there are plans for a soft path trail system on the south side. So this is another space where possibly with the trails that we're planning to put in anyway, that there could be the option of considering introducing dogs off leash in this area. And possibly, like you mentioned, Clint, maybe there are A days, B days, hours provided, so that site is balanced between those who desire to use that trail system with or without a dog there.
Do you know what the timeline is on the undeveloped area in that? So the lower portion, as far as the soft trail?
This development of trails is within our 5-year budget that we have on our master plan for budgeting. So it's not funded right now, but it's within our 5-year budget.
And some of this funding is coming in as the homes are being developed. So those parking fees come directly to this park.
What's a guesstimate on the cost on that? And I know it's a guesstimate because obviously the climate increases as well, but
we're in the 6-digit dollar range
on something like
for this.
Okay.
Lower side of that range. You know, we think we're doing well with our existing plan and what's going on in the parks right now. We serve most of the dog owners in the city. But we recognize that when we came tonight, you may want to look at other options. This is the option that we prefer because we feel that these areas are large enough to accommodate, you know, our city, but also it is a different opportunity than other cities provide. It is not the same cookie cutter answer that all of the surrounding cities have. So that's why we brought this today.
Let me ask about one other area. And that is East Gentile, up by the golf course, down in the gully area where we currently have property.
That's the Holmes Creek Reservoir Trail System. That's in orange right here.
I mean, I'm curious what that would take.
So there's, we do have part of the property. The other thing that still needs to align is there's the parcel that we're waiting for transfer from UDOT, which would serve the trailhead parking. But then there's also a section of trail that is owned by another property owner, and so that would take having a willing property owner to be able to get that fully connected.
It is a good site.
Yeah, I'm thinking that would be an ideal site. And I know that that owner initially wanted to try to do something along these lines, but I think they ran into some financial difficulties.
And to make it work well, we need the parking lot, which UDOT is working with us on, for the property. And then we need that linkage, the connection between the property that we own and the parking lot. And so that linkage is through the other private entity. And we'll continue to work with them.
So there's no way to take what we existing have and at least create something?
The challenge is parking. There's no great access right now, and they're overwhelmed with streets nearby.
We've got the parallel park along there.
And that road's pretty narrow.
But it is, as you can see, a study and something we're looking at.
Ask another question about liability. What is the city's liability if there's off-leash day at this trail and somebody gets, whatever happens, and the city gets sued, or how does liability work for the city? You've offered this amenity, you opened it up.
It's a good question. I had not looked into it, and I definitely can do that for you guys. But regardless of liability, I promise you we're getting sued. If somebody gets bit, we're getting dragged into it. Whether we see that all the time. There's obvious situations where we're not liable or maybe not even shouldn't even be a party, have nothing to do with it, and we'll get thrown in there. So if there are dog bites and things like that, we'll definitely have to defend ourselves get ourselves out of it.
So currently, if there's an issue in one of the parks with the dog off leash, we're still being sued. Even though it's-
Probably, but
In
that
our
one,
case.
it's pretty clear, right? When somebody is violating our ordinance and violating our rules, then it places the liability on the dog owner for sure.
But there is liability though, if we open up the park or an area.
Potentially, yeah. I think there probably are, we could probably build.
All dogs are good
protections.
dogs, I promise. Everyone's dogs are the best boy or the best girl. But sometimes something happens.
It does. And we could, without researching it, I'm sure there's some steps that we could take that would help with that, but in the end, we can't control who decides to sue us and who doesn't. And there will, inevitably, there will be conflicts. It may not be often, but it will happen.
It's one of the risks. Okay, thank you.
Great
No.
presentation. This is Will Crick. Thank you for putting this together for us to be able to review. But Dave kind of said, I think, in his way, what his opinion was. What do you think? And independent of political stuff, we get lots of people who tell us, this is what you should do, this is what you should do. What do you think we should do?
I support what Dave said. I feel like we're doing a good job. But if you wish to look at an off-leash option, we would direct you to this option instead of a fenced off-leash that you typically see all around us. Those are very difficult to build and to maintain.
Thank
It
you.
looks like the Bamberger one's the first option, at least the most viable option right now, though, right? So I gotta take it.
But
Hey,
you
any other
also-
questions? I know we got another presentation, so
Sorry.
yeah.
But you all are saying that you would prefer the mid-fork one that's not yet completely finished.
Oh, if we were to take the next steps,
we were to do a
I've
trail
explored
type
Bamberger Trail first.
Mhm.
We could try a temporary one-year trial period, see how it's being used. And then if it's successful, the one that's in yellow, maybe that could be opened up. later.
Does that have parking at the other end?
Which one?
Bamberger?
There's the,
I know there's the
library.
library,
Yeah, there's the
but
library.
at the other end, there's no parking.
Right.
Or the trail.
There's homes right against it.
Yeah, would you,
That's what it looks like.
what would
So
you do
there's-
with the, I mean, it's not really fenced in.
There's
the
fence.
ends.
There's,
The
oh, the
ends.
ends, yeah. that
Just
was-
traffic.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has to,
That's a
it's a
stop
trail.
Just traffic.
I would, on that point too, I would add that having worked in a city that had a dog park,
Yeah.
there was conflict with the neighbors
Mm-hmm.
Up and down.
and the neighbors' dogs.
Yeah.
There was a lot of that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay,
Welcome.
well, thank you.
Thanks.
That's a good in-depth study that we needed to hear, and I'm sure we'll mull it over and let you know.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Next up, let's do a quick briefing on, update on the Hayes Creek Estate sidewalks, and then Chief will be up next.
Can I ask a question? Will there be public comment about the dog park?
So in our regular scheduled council meeting at 7 o'clock, we have a public hearing.
Oh, okay.
So that'd be a good time to comment.
Okay.
All right, thanks for letting me be here tonight. Real quick, just wanted to give you an update on the sidewalk project. It's substantially complete, meaning that contractors are basically working on the final punch list. Substantial completion took 10 weeks to complete. A lot of work was done. Just real quick, I'll push through these slides pretty quickly. This was a 5-year-old picture from Google Earth of some of the minor displacements that were out here on this property. A broken section of sidewalk. This is what it ended up having to be once we removed the 2 trees. All of the sidewalk had to come out. We had to put PVC sleeve back, but you notice the extra thin forms we used to try and get the concrete back in, take care of it. This was the picture of the adjacent property, or the house next door. That one tree generated all of those tree roots under the sidewalk, and then you can see the restored property after the project was finished up. These are the roots from just a single tree that was under the sidewalk. Again, another example of all the tree roots from a single tree that was under the sidewalk. These are from about 5 or 6 trees that we had down there on St. Louis Drive, so in probably the area I'll call the worst area with the roots and all the piles of problems that we were having. So an example is this is actually a tree root that has wrapped itself around a sprinkler pipe. So that's the sprinkler pipe, and here's all the tree roots that have basically pinched that off so it's non-functional. Again, this was a conduit underneath the sidewalk that was for sprinklers. This is the actual sprinkler pipe. So you're looking at the end of the pipe, and then this is the tree root. So that pipe was doing absolutely nothing for the homeowner, pinched off, creating problems. So a little bit of before and after pictures. You can see the lift from this tree right here. The tree is, since it was removed, the sidewalk was repaired, and then the homeowner has replanted a tree that we hope is from that approved tree list that we were given. This is one of the ADA ramps that was replaced. You can see all the roots that follow that sprinkler line around the curb line there. So that's the image of the new ADA ramp that was replaced out there. Again, more pictures, pretty severe lifts, and then the tree that needed to come out, and then what the restoration looked like after it was all completed. Again, another road. This was lifted all up and down the sidewalk, all of the tree roots that had to come out there, the piles of tree roots from obviously multiple trees. And then this is what it looks like now that it's been restored, taken care of. There was some pretty substantial areas. You could see where the trees had just spread everywhere and taken out.
So did you just seed that area? Are you putting grass seed, or what's the plan going
The
forward?
homeowners were responsible to figure out what they wanted to do. Many of them actually were flipping their strips and things as well, and then they were planting trees back in there once the work had been restored. So, again, a picture of the tree roots. You can see the Page's Tree Service, very professional with the crane and all the safety gear on it. And then this is what that sidewalk looks like now that it's been repaired. Again, trees here that were lifting the sidewalk. You can see this yellow line is actually a gas line that runs through that park strip. So this is not finished restoration. This was a picture after the sidewalk was poured, but they hadn't come back and leveled it out and tied it all back in yet. Again, another photo here. You can see they've removed the trees. They've replanted one of the trees already. More photos. These homeowners chose to put a little bit of rock in this corner instead of plant the tree. It actually damaged their drive approach and things, so we tied that back in. Again, just more photos. These are the roots that we were dealing with underneath these sidewalks, pretty substantial. Again, more sidewalk. This was a lot of park strip that had to be removed and replaced because of the tree roots that had been in there. Gas lines mixed into all of these. That was the photo I mentioned there. This red line is the power lines that were through the trees. So you can see that blue stake mark. As they blue stake the road, there are the lines. These little flags indicate gas lines, so they were multiple places where people, you go plant a tree and you think you're not doing anything, but you end up putting your tree right over the top of your utilities. So overall, 249 feet of curb and gutter were replaced, 5,633 feet of sidewalk. Just a note on that, originally we thought we were going to be in there with about 3,300 feet of sidewalk, so substantially more sidewalk was impacted and damaged by these tree roots, having to chase those out and fix all of these issues that were going on in here. 54 ADA ramps and then 206 trees that were removed with the project came out of that. So as we talked previously, we've got about 70% of the property owners who had either been granted an extension or agreed to pay for the 50% that we had offered to match with them, and then we had about 30% that we haven't heard from. We haven't reached out to anybody since our last conversation, waiting for kind of the council to give us a little bit of direction, but Again, the project is essentially complete now with just a little bit of touch-up here and there, and then our next steps would be to finish paying the contractors and then send out notices if that's the direction that we receive to the homeowners, to remind them that there are some deadlines to pay or find out what their situation is. Again, a lot of them have been told that they have until September to pay, but others need some reminding. So, Alex, do you have anything you wanted to add on that, or any questions I can answer from the council?
We just think it should be consistent, and there are many, again, many people have paid, and some haven't. But we think, as Steve said, largely that's because they haven't received a reminder. Some may be hoping that the city forgets, but from the staff perspective, at least, we think everybody ought to be treated consistently on that, and somebody shouldn't, because of intentional or forgetfulness, be able to not fulfill the same responsibility that the neighbors have. And, so staff saying just to move forward with that, and closure of the project, activity bring closer to that piece as well.
Yeah, that brings it back to, I think, some of the discussion you had before on compensation or not. So they're sitting in the gray area until we give them direction. Just want to move on that. I know we're going to cheap short on his presentation, but it's not scheduled on the next meeting either, right?
Now, we can put it on the next, plan on doing that as part of the discussion. The fire thing, I think, gives us some time, gives the deadlines.
I would prefer that we move that to the next work meeting so we can discuss it, or even in the public meeting.
That meaning
Not necessarily
the
tonight, but
sidewalks or the...
That meaning the discussion on what to do as far as the sidewalks. If we, yeah, I just think that's going to take longer to discuss than we have really right now.
And I prefer that we have everybody here
Great.
on that as well, so, okay. Let's plan on that then. With that, let's go ahead and jump in then to our fire presentation.
All right, we will.
Thank you for your patience.
Oh,
I know
you
you
bet.
got a lot
We will.
to present as well.
We're going to try to cover a lot here pretty quick for you. So just give a little bit of background. This last legislative session, Senate Bill 215 was passed into law, and it had a total revamping of the way that licensing was done for ambulances and relicensing. And so with that, there's been some major changes that have come about. This bill was the result of a legislative audit that was completed this last year, and really it centered around some interfacility transport issues with service level, customer service, and provision of service by some of the providers, not us, but different parts of the state. So that the challenge is this bill was signed into law and went into effect May 7th of this year. Well, when it went into effect May 7th this year, there's no rules that had been established. The rules had not been written, and they're anticipated those rules will be written in October of this year. The challenge is our license expires July 31st. So I had actually talked with the director of the Bureau of EMS, Darren Bushman, about some of the challenges now. What are we going to do? We're kind of in limbo. We started the process, and Assistant Chief Scott Mons is going to take you through the bulk of the document here. I've also got with me Kyle Hall, who is over our licensing and relicensing of our personnel, and also handles our ambulance licensing and relicensing for our service. And Battalion Chief Nathan Nance is he's Battalion Chief over training and also Administrative Battalion Chief that helps with a lot of other projects. So, and basically in our conversation with Director Bushman, he said, well, I guess you guys are going to be a test case. You'll be the guinea pig. And it's not just us. There are several other agencies that are going into this pretty blind. I had asked for some direction and asked them for like a checklist of what to do. And actually they did come out with a checklist that actually came out today based on our suggestion. But we had to move relatively quick on this. I think we've got a lot of these things covered, and I'll have Chief Bond go over the bulk of what we needed to do with our requirements, which is present to you as a governing body what we do, and then we'll look for support on the way we currently operate. So I'll turn it over to Chief Bond.
The biggest thing on this is that you as the governing body get to choose who your EMS provider for both 911 and interfacility is going to be. That's what the bulk of this is for. In the past, it's just been, oh, whoever's doing it is doing it. There hasn't been any oversight. So that's what we're doing, is we're giving you guys get the opportunity to tell us that it's going to be us, or if somebody else comes in, because we do have to do a RFP. We have to send it out by law, and somebody else could come in and say, we want to do this, and then you guys might have to listen to them too. So they asked us to give you the three pillars of what the program is, which is the cost of the program, and then how cost effective it is, the quality of the program, and how we do the things, and the accessibility of the program and how people access it. So I could put it up there, but you guys have your book there. I'm on page 7 as I talk about the cost of our stuff. I remember hearing Tracy talk last week about how the fire department, it has two separate budgets. One's the fire department fire budget, which comes from general fund, and the EMS enterprise fund that comes from our billing and our revenue and the stuff that we do every day. You can see kind of the breakdown right there. Last year, calendar year 2024, we totally billed out for $10.1 million worth of services. And we only send bills to those we transport. For the most part. There are a few times where we've sent bills to people that we don't transport, but it's if we've used a lot of supplies, but we only send bills to those that we transport. And that's from their home or from a scene or from a hospital on in. We do get a little bit of money from the paramedic tax assessment, or the property tax assessment that used to be called the Davis County mill levy. That comes in. You can kind of see there what the Utah Bureau of EMS rates are. These are rates that we bill. We can't bill more. We can't bill less. Another one of the bills that came out from the legislature was House Bill 301. We can now not bill for supplies. We have to eat those. It's been kind of pushed into the base rate. We can't bill for the supplies, but we can bill for medications. One of the things I want to bring to your attention is our billing effectiveness. After we have to write down the mandatory required write-offs that come from Medicare, Medicaid, TRICARE, and other things, our billing team, which is Veronica and Angie, right in our secretaries in our office, can have been collecting 96.1% of everything that they can collect, which is a ridiculous number that is far superior to anybody in the state. Just as a side note, if we were to contract with a third-party biller, which most everybody does, we're one of the only ones that does billing for ourselves, they will take 5.5% of the net collected, which for us would be about $307,000. So we are doing that in-house ourselves.
Kudos.
If we switch over to the next page, just as we look at operational efficiency, we have 95 total positions within the fire department. 33 of those positions are funded through the EMS fund balance. 31 of the operational personnel are specifically funded out of that. Just to make note, of the 81 operations personnel, that's the 27 per shift, everybody rides the ambulance, everybody goes on medicals, and everybody treats the patients. We just tie 31 people to that account. So we have the cross-training, and those same 31 people fight the fires too. As you can kind of move down there, we got their daily staffing. We have 5 ambulances on every day, 24/7. That's minimum staffing. We don't drop below that. And our 3 paramedic units that we also have. And then you can kind of see some of the other things there. I'll kind of just skip through those. The average transport bill is about $2,200. That's just when you tie on the mileage, the base rate, and the medications that we now can supply. Moving to page 9, each of these, we have to talk about the interfacility transfers, because we also hold the license to do the interfacility transfers in our geographical area. We have 2 hospitals that use us, one more than the other, a lot more than the other. And so we've done 2,059 interfacility transports last year, which is an increase of about just to 2%. As you look, the hospitals don't pay us for that. We bill the patient, and those patients sometimes call and say, hey, I didn't call for you, but we were called for service. You can kind of see the reimbursement rates from Medicaid and Medicare. Those are set by the feds. Those are not set by us, and that's all we can bill. If you go back to the previous page, you can see what a base rate would cost and what an ALS fee will cost.
and Medicare and Medicaid, they pay what they pay. And that's what we get. That's where we get those other write-downs from. We transport regardless of anybody's ability to pay. We do not judge. You want to go, we're happy to take you. Day, night, middle of the night, it doesn't matter. We have two different types of ambulances in our fleet. We have the big boxes that cost a lot more money, and we have the small ones. But with the big boxes, we're able to carry more equipment. We're able to carry our ALS or our fire equipment on there, and we can also utilize the back of that a lot more. If we have to take some specialty units, we quite often take cardiac cath lab patients that need to go from bypass from Davis Hospital, and they're on a balloon pump about the size of that chair that has to go into the back of the ambulance with us. So you can see the cost of those ambulances, and we have both of them. The Type 2s, the smaller ones, that's the one that we kind of got in a crash. They are much more comfortable for the ride, but there's not a lot of room in them. All right. Moving on to the quality section, we have 84 licensed paramedics or advanced EMTs. They're all licensed through the state of Utah. We have medical director oversight. Dr. Mark Arastovich is a board certified emergency physician with over 25 years of experience, 25 years with our city. He also works for Weber State University as their EMT and paramedic program coordinator. He presides all of our oversight. He signs off on all of our policies and any of the procedures that we choose to do as we move through this. We are 92% compliant on our drive times, our response times to emergencies, which is the 5 minutes and 20 seconds. It's an 80-second turnout time to get our crews out the door with a 4-minute drive time. And we're 92% compliant for the 911 calls. And the interfacility transfers, we get there a little bit later because almost 80% of those are non-emergent, and they're already under the care of a physician and they're being taken care of. Every one of our paramedic units, I'm on page 11, every one of our paramedic units is equipped with an additional set, so 2 sets of advanced life support equipment, and so that we can, with the amount of paramedics we have, including the 4 battalion chiefs and myself, we can sometimes take an extra call, which we've done a lot lately because we've been so busy. As we talk about the interfacility transfers, we have a wonderful, wonderful relationship with both of our hospitals. Captain Hall over there, he sits on both of the trauma committees, the trauma recertification, the strokes committees, and the CARES committees at both hospitals. He meets with them monthly or quarterly, I think quarterly, and helps them with that. On page 12, our clinical skill sets for interfacilities. We routinely take extremely sick or extremely ill patients that would otherwise get a flight because of our expertise and the amount of work and training that we provide. We do have some QA processes as well. Finally, the access to our services, like I talked about before, our response time reliability, we're top notch there. We do not slow down, or we do not send people home on slow days. We are 24/7, 365. Our minimum staffing is what you saw on a couple of those other pages of the 5 ambulances and the 4 engines. Other agencies at times when they get into those slow times, they'll pull back ambulances and they don't have as many on, but we do not do that. The backup and surge capacity, that is something that the state is big on. We have mutual aid agreements with all the Davis County fire agencies to help back us up, and we help back them up. And we also have an MOU with Gold Cross Ambulance and to have them to come help us back us up for transfers. And we really want them to take all of our non-emergent interfacility psychiatric patients for us. And they're hitting or missing at about 50% of the ones they take. So we're still doing quite a few of those. Like I said, almost all of our IFTs, our interfacility transports, are non-emergent. And we go exactly when we're requested, 75% of the time, meaning that they page us and we go. But there are times when we are just too busy and we can't go, and so we call them back and say, we'll be there when we get there. When they have an emergent one, like somebody that has to go right now, if we can't handle it, one of our neighboring agencies does. That is it in a nutshell. I don't want to keep us too long. The steps from here is that Clint and I have been working on the RFP, which we'd like to send out tomorrow. We're going to have it out there for 10 days. And after the 10 days, whether we get a respondent or not, we're hopeful that this governing body, you folks, will sign a letter of intent saying we are choosing to stay with Layton City Fire Department as our EMS 911 service provider and our 911 service, or our interfacility service provider for our community and our customers. And after that, we'll send a letter to the state saying that we've met, we hope, their requirements for this House, their Senate Bill 215 that we're doing without a net. So, can I answer any questions for you?
Chief said that our contract ends is it July 31st.
And July 31st.
Our license
Our
expires
licensing,
July 31st.
yes.
That's why we're
We're
kind of
suppo-
urgent on this. We're gonna have the RFP out for
Tomorrow.
10 days.
Yeah, 10
10
days.
days.
Yeah.
And then we'll be able to.
You know,
see if anybody's
realistically,
talking.
knowing that the billing, there's a set rate on billing, what good is an RFP? What are you gonna get out of it?
It gives you the opportunity to listen to another agency to see if they can come in and provide the same or better service for a different price or more
It opens
more
up to-
equitable.
It's opened up to other EMS qualified agencies, which by law right now is other governmental agencies or for-profit companies. Those are the only ones that are available. Non-profit agencies couldn't come in. So you could have an AMR or FALC or one of the other global medical response, large ambulance companies come in and say, well, we'll take over everything and we'll pay you $5 million a year. But that doesn't really do anything for us. You know,
It takes-
right now with what we do, with what you get with fire protection, we can't get rid of firefighters. We gotta have them anyway.
I know it.
So.
That's
And
it.
you also lose your quality control because they do not work for us.
Well, and that response time. They would have a longer drive. so-
Well, they would also have to post up somewhere in the city where we have our fire stations. One of the last ones is the map. You can see this map is our 4-minute drive time from every one of our fire stations. And so they're either parking in our parking lot of our fire stations or on the street somewhere that, so,
The licenses with the state of Utah?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and with our,
Sorry, you guys.
with the 911 dispatch.
Thanks for being a leader.
Mayor, with the 911 dispatch, doesn't that, I mean, how would that even play into this? And I know I don't have time to go into the detail, but I mean,
So if you were to select a different agency, they would be on our radio frequencies and things like that, and they would get toned just like we get toned. Again, that would be additional work and additional, probably not cost, but it would be work on the PD's end for the dispatchers to have to learn an entire new way of doing things.
Right.
which we're currently trying to teach all the others.
All the other agencies, yeah. Yeah, no.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was a good,
Please have us back if you have questions, and
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll be
We'll go
back if
through
we
your
get a
process.
response. We'll respond it, so.
we'll
Okay.
help you be
Thank you.
compliant. How's that? Okay, motion to adjourn.
That we adjourn.
Thank you. go without legal? Okay. Kim, you ready? Okay. All right, I'd like to welcome everyone out to our Layton City Council meeting this evening. The date is June 19th, and our start time is 7:07. I have to apologize and say thank you very much for your patience. We had a pretty robust work meeting, and so we're a little late coming into here, but at the same time, like I said, welcome everyone, and I look forward to the meeting. As customary, we do a prayer and a pledge before each meeting. We take turns up here. Tonight, I do have to excuse Councilmember Roberts due to an illness, and so it would have been his turn. Excuse me, sir, you're out of line. You can wait. So in this case, I will fill in for Councilmember Roberts, and tonight we have sitting on the dais with us one of our youth council. So, Davion? Davion. Okay. So Davion's actually going to join me in this process. He's actually willing to say the prayer, so I believe we're going to start our meeting with the prayer, and then we'll have the pledge afterwards. So I'm going to turn the time over to you. You what? You want to do the pledge instead? Yeah. That's fine. Okay, we're going to swap. He's going to do the pledge. I will say the prayer. So if you would, bow your heads with me. Our Father in heaven, we're grateful to be able to gather here this evening as the Layton City governing body. We're very grateful for our city and for all the abundance that we have. We deeply pray for all those folks within our city that they will be well taken care of. We pray for our first responders and their ability to respond as needed in those emergency situations. We ask thee, please, to watch over us as we go into the holiday season and understanding the importance of gatherings and having respect for one another and dignity. We ask thee tonight that we may be able to do the city's business in a very controlled and well thought out manner, and that this council will be able to make the correct decisions that are placed before them. We thank thee again for all we've been given. We say this dearly in thy name, Jesus Christ. Amen. Amen. Okay, ask me to stand and
please stand. Please stand and follow me.
Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Davian. It's fun to have our youth involved with this so that we can they can have an experience as far as what takes place within our city and the importance of the process, right? So it's learning. It's a good way to learn for them. Council, we don't have any minutes to take care of tonight, so I'll go ahead and go down to our municipal events. I know that, like I said, with the holidays coming up, we got a lot of different things going on. Typically, Councilman Roberts would announce our Parks and Rec activities coming up, so I'll go ahead and fill in on that. We want to encourage everyone, obviously, to participate in the July 4th holiday. There's a lot of stuff going on that morning. We start out with the fun run, which is a 5K. It's a more fun, less run as well, so it can accommodate all ages. We ask that you pre-register with the Parks and Rec Department. We will also, the Rotary Club will be serving breakfast over here in the pavilion. The price of that will be $7. There will be a flag raising ceremony at 8:30. Then the festivities for the parade will begin. We always start out with our kids on their bike parade at 10:15. The parade begins at 10:30. And surf and swim will be open, and our whole commons area then the carnival and vendor booths and concessions will take place right after the parade. And then that evening, we have a free concert at 8 p.m. in the Kenley Theater. The performers this year is going to be the Utah Broadway Stars presents The Spirit of Freedom. And of course, our fireworks take place at 10 p.m. But prior to that, as a council and myself, we like to acknowledge our hometown heroes, and we've had the opportunity to recognize some of them at this point. We will be going around and identifying a few more. So the Sunday before will be a special concert at 7 p.m. at the Kenley Theater, where we'll be able to honor those hometown heroes, and we would like everyone to join us. Council, do you have any other announcements you'd like to share with them at this time?
I think one thing that we didn't mention that's happening for the 4th of July is on July 3rd, we have our All-Star baseball game.
Yes.
The night before, and that'll be at 6 p.m. So we're excited that that's back.
And the kids get to participate in the parade. The other thing I want to mention also, I know it's after the 4th of July, but it's when people ask when is our Layton Fest start. We always start it the Friday after the 4th of July, because we're so taxed getting ready for the 4th that it's good to start it after that. So that will then continue each Friday afterwards. Okay. Is there any other announcements here? Okay, seeing that there's none, let's go ahead then and go on to our citizens' comment portion of our meeting. This is the time when you as residents may get up and voice your concerns or recommendations for us. We ask that you step up to the mics and state your name. And if you could, we prefer that you limit your comments to 3 minutes, but I will determine that as well. However, we do have a clock here. So if you're going to comment on anything regarding our public hearing portion of our meeting, you can wait until that time, and we will open it up for public comment on those specific items that are listed on our agenda. Otherwise, the time is now yours. And please keep in mind that we really don't get into a dialogue, but we'll keep track of everything. Thank you.
I'll be quick. My name is Jennifer Bizzano. I live here in Layton, and I would like to open by saying I appreciate the work it takes to be on this city council and part of city government. I've sat on many boards over the years, and I know it's a thankless, difficult job because you can't make everybody happy. So, that being said, I was present for the work meeting, and I would like to point out a few things I felt were left out that were pretty clear when we heard this presentation the first time over in Parks and Rec.
Okay.
So, benefits are far greater than dog socialization and dogs being able to run. Benefits are owners can socialize. It gets the citizens out in another way that have dogs together in a common area that have common interests. But most importantly, when you have an off-leash dog park in a city, the decline in calls to animal control is significant. Off-leash dogs are in every park in the city because people don't have a place to take their dogs. Barking dogs. Ask animal control. Somebody should check into that. We've talked to them on our side. The drop in calls is very significant. Secondly, I do think it's a little bit irresponsible and kind of shocking, frankly, to hear Layton City say, well, there's other dog parks 16 minutes away. Okay, but you're the biggest city in the county. Why are you pushing off your responsibility for your citizens to neighboring cities, smaller cities that don't have the infrastructure and the trail systems that Layton already has in place? The reason Bountiful City struggles with their dog park is because they're pulling in North Salt Lake, they're pulling in Centerville, they're pulling in Farmington, they're pulling in Layton City residents. They can't handle it. It's tiny. They shouldn't have to keep up with us. The amount of high-density housing that's coming into Layton City at an alarming rate, I'm a fan of because I believe in it. People need a place to live. We've got apartments coming in, we've got townhouses, we've got condos. As fast as we can build them, as fast as you can let those developers go. They have dogs. All of them have dogs. Thank you, COVID. Everybody has a dog. Lastly, the trail situation is a perfect scenario. Somebody made a comment that it might be off-putting for people without dogs to come to that trail on maybe the even days dogs are allowed or the hours dogs are allowed. They have 1,000 places to go. We don't. We have the perfect trail system infrastructure already set up to make it viable for a section to be for off-leash dogs. So I would just ask that you genuinely look into this and please try and find an option. We have so many empty parks. Thank you. I appreciate your time. I really do.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, my name's Jean Medberry, and I am new to Layton. I've been here just a few months, and when I attempted to attend the last meeting, the GPS took me to the wrong place, and I spent probably a good half hour trying to find where we're at tonight. So I'm happy we're meeting tonight, and I didn't miss anything last time. But being new to the community, one of the things you do is you drive around and you find where the grocery store's at, where the library's at, where the park's at, and where's the dog park. And I was shocked to find out that Layton doesn't have a dog park. The community that I moved from in Colorado, the population is 81,000. Layton's a little bit larger than that, but about the same size. We had 3 dog parks. We had one dog park that was like a nice open space where you could go for a hike, and it backed up to open space where you could then put your dog on a leash and go hiking with your dog. But it got the vinegar out. The other dog park was a community dog park right near where the soccer fields were at, and they would alternate having the fields back and forth for keeping the grass fresh. There was a small dog park section and a large dog park section. The dog parks were part of the community where the Boy Scouts would build the agility field, having a wall, a memorial wall, or getting bricks to help fund the taking care of the dog park. We had a little place where you could keep your toys at. It really was a nice sense of community, and it wasn't just that everybody was part of that. I'm going to add that I am currently not a dog owner, so I was very shocked. And when I told other people that I worked with that I was coming here tonight, they're like, "You're kidding, Layton doesn't have a dog park?" So I really feel that a dog park is very important. It's going to bring community together. It's a place where dogs and people can join together. You have people with mental health issues, a lot of times they just stay inside, and if they have a dog, they don't have any other communication. They come to the dog park and they make friends with other people. People will gather at dog parks at the same time and make that a ritual for the community. So it is a very strong sense of community to have a dog park. I would be happy. I have been to so many different dog parks. If you go to Colorado Springs, Bear Creek Dog Park is an awesome, awesome dog park with hiking trails, rivers that the dogs can run in. They've got a small section, a large section, an area with agility. They've got a little playground for kids to play in where their dogs are out running and doing what dogs do and people do. So there's so many opportunities, and doing some research before coming here, just the next state over, 4 hours away, I understand Boise's got like a world-class dog park. Layton could be the next world-class dog park. So I guess my 3 minutes are up. So, but I did put together a little handout for everybody with some selling points of why Layton needs a dog park.
You can hand them there. Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else?
Yeah, that's the same. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks.
So I have been to previous meetings as a Farmington resident, but I am, as of 2 weeks ago, I am now a Layton resident. So I'm proud of that, except that I don't think you're meeting the needs of Layton residents by not having a dog park.
Do you mind stating your name?
Oh, I'm Megan Smock. Okay. So yeah, and I ditto both of what they said. I agree fully. And I did appreciate the presentation, both the previous presentation on dog parks and the one tonight. But I do agree, it didn't mention nearly the benefits that our group has presented to all of you multiple times. There are many, many benefits, as been mentioned, like community. It's good for the mental health of humans and animals. And yeah, there's many, many, many more benefits than were mentioned. Yes, there are challenges. Yes, there are risks, but there are many benefits. It was mentioned that Bountiful said don't do it, but I think that's because they are the only one that is trying to carry the whole city. And sure, there might be, like, the smaller cities might not have the room or the capacity, but Layton does and should be taking that responsibility, especially for being in the middle of the county. Like, this would be a central place for people and their dogs to come and have a really nice, like, fully functional, big enough space to spread that out so that the one at the bottom of the county and one at the top of the county aren't so overwhelmed. It was mentioned that Farmington took theirs out and didn't replace it because it was too hard or too much maintenance. But I'm pretty sure they did that because they weren't making money and needed to build the new park, the new building. And so that was why. But I have been told that there are plans to put one in Farmington. So they are stepping up and taking that responsibility. But yeah, I think that Layton, for the size that it has and the number of people that are in it and the number of dogs that are in it, not having a dog park is not serving them well. It's like building a building without a parking lot. Like, it's not functional. It's not enough for Layton. Layton deserves better. So yeah, I really do think that we can do better, and it is a huge need, and there is a lot of benefit, and it can be done. And as mentioned, like, there's scout programs and people that can build and donate, and it doesn't have to be all on Layton City specifically. There's ways to do that. So that's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Jennifer Garner. I live in Layton. I'm going to be quick. I have dogs, and I will not come to the government to expect you to build me a dog park. I know that you guys have to plan for the people who don't take good care of their dogs, and I know that's not any of you. I'm sure you take great care of your dogs. But anyway, so the part that I was surprised about is someone said something about, can you tell me about liability? And the presenters didn't have any information on liability. So I would just hope that you would wait for that data to make any decisions, because data drives the best decisions. I am also super excited. I got to brag about Layton at our Davis County Commissioners meeting. I heard we were completely out of debt, and I was like, Davis County, be like Layton. Anyway, it was amazing. You guys are doing such a great job, and that makes me really happy as a taxpayer that doesn't live in Colorado, by the way. No, I know, but they pay higher taxes. So I just wanted to bring to your attention, if you haven't seen it already, Spencer Cox, our governor, released an executive order with some things in it that weren't quite true. He said that Utah's one of the fastest growing states in the nation, and our population growth is the demand for more housing, transportation, water, energy, open space, recreation, and with these kind of restricted resources, he's kind of taking over planning for some of the cities and counties. So I would look at that and, point him to the Constitution. But I would also mention that that some of this data isn't true. So the Kempsey Gardner Institute for years has been saying, oh, we're going to have 1 million new people in Utah, and that has never happened. It's never happened that in 1 year we're going to get 1 million new people. So as we're looking at housing, as we're looking at water usage, I would ask that the city requires the data on how many of those high-density housing units, what's their occupancy level, because they're taking longer to fill up than anticipated. And you can even ask any of the landlords, hey, how long does that take? Like, are they even full? They're not full, yet we're building more and more and more. Well, who are those people for? And when people want houses versus stack and pack them, then the materials are more expensive to build actual housing that becomes more affordable. So I would just, when Spencer Cox comes in with his demands and things like that, I would just ask him for more data and have data drive those decisions. And thanks again for being out of debt. Appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you very much. Anyone else?
I'm Orlando. You don't need to know my last name. I want to tell you why I think the dog park's a good idea. I live by Central Davis Junior High in that Crestview Elementary School there. There are dogs all day long in that field. People don't take care of them. They leave their crap everywhere from them dogs, the dog crap. We need a place that's safe for them to go play with them dogs. I love dogs. I have 2 of my own. I think we need a better environment for them, so them fields should be out there for the kids to play in and not have to run in all that stuff. I think it would be beneficial for Layton City. We do have all these condominiums and houses coming in that people do have dogs in. And there is no place for anyone to take their animals. We love our animals just like children. So I'd like to have that park just take care of our animals and not have our, I mean, you won't even allow us in the park over here anymore, which is, I think, crap. But whatever. I have a service dog, so I'll take it in there. But others can't, and that's a beautiful walkway, and we can't even do that. We need to have places for our animals to take them, because with all these condos and everything, all it does is really ruin the beauty of Layton. And I've lived here for 40-something years. So I think it would be beneficial for a lot of people to have that park. That's all I got to say.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Well, I want to thank everyone for voicing their opinion tonight. Like I said, this is a topic that we know we've asked for an in-depth study, which we've gone through, so we'll determine the outcome here at a future date. Meanwhile, let's go ahead and move on to our consent items tonight. We have 2 items, and as I've mentioned many times before, we can actually take action on both of these items in one single motion. So to start off, we'll go ahead and go with item number A, which Mr. Tracy Probert's going to present this item to us, and it's regarding our amended sewer rate and other fees.
Mayor, members of the council, pleasure to be with you here tonight. We didn't have a chance to go over some of these changes in the fees and the consolidated fee schedule in the work meeting, so I'll go over those briefly with you here in the council meeting. This document here that I've put up front it only has the pages that have changes on it, not the entire consolidated fee schedule. The first change proposed is to take out the word annual under urban chicken annual permit fee, so that it's just a one-time fee, not an annual fee. On the next page, under the fire department, some of the changes there are to increase the cost for fire standby services at special events. You can see those changes from $75 to $85, a 2-hour minimum, and then some of the equipment, if provided at those events, ambulances, fire engines, and all of this based on analysis of the cost of having personnel and equipment present at these types of special events. Another item on this page is related to fire review fee for building and businesses in unincorporated areas of the county. There's been an agreement put in place so that now we need a fee related to those reviews of building permits and so forth. You can see those listed for small, medium, and large buildings. Also a fee for fire inspection in unincorporated areas of the county and for additional inspections in unincorporated areas of the county. Also under fire training tower. Is that on this page? Let's see. Yeah, must be. Oh yeah, there it is in the middle, sorry. So in order to do training at the tower, $85 per hour, up from $75 per hour. And then also, if training is required with live fire, that's going to go from 1,000 per 4-hour session to 1,200 per 4-hour session. Under the standby fee that was part of a fee by itself, that's eliminated from the fee schedule because it's now incorporated into that I just mentioned up above. And then also emergency responder communication coverage system. There's a plan review, final inspection fee, and a re-inspection fee that have been asked for by the fire department. We discussed this next one in a previous meeting under the budget. Sanitary sewer service. North Davis Sewer District proposes a $2.50 increase in the monthly fee for sewer service. They've actually adopted that fee already. And then our budget proposes a $2.64 increase based on the plan that we brought forward to you last year in a 3-year increase in the sewer system. That will result in a $5.14 increase in the sanitary sewer fee per month in the city, and also a 25-cent per 1,000-gallon increase for commercial and churches, schools, motels, hotels, those types of entities. They pay an excess consumption fee in the off-summer months, and so that fee goes up. That's part of North Davis Sewer's fee increase. Under planning and zoning, they've asked to remove the landscape buffer, fencing modifications, and waiver fee. That fee is no longer allowed under our ordinance, and so we need to take it out of the fee schedule. They've also removed a line item in here that says if annexation and rezone are combined. Because of the way the code works for approving annexations, there's some timing differences that don't allow those to be combined together efficiently, and so that fee they've asked to remove that fee from the schedule. Related to pool construction, there's been a problem in the past with having pool contractors be charged a fee for building a pool, but then at times not completing that pool fully for the final inspection. And so it's proposed that we have a refundable bond instead of a fee. And so they'll pay a bond just like any other construction or landscape type bond. And then once the structure is completely finished, final inspection passed, they'll be able to have a refund of that bond. As far as street signs are concerned, and let's see, did I forget? Subdivision street sign fees. There's an increase in those. Public Works did an analysis of those fees. You'll see that for a subdivision street sign, it was $90. They're increasing that to $315. The problem being that the pole alone probably costs $90, and so we've been undercharging for a number of years when those get hit by a car because they slid off the road or in a traffic accident or for whatever reason, someone just decides to break one and bust it or whatever. We've now analyzed the actual costs of not only producing the sign, but installing that sign, removing of the old sign. And so the other one would be regulatory signs within subdivisions from $65 to $375. These increased fees also allow us that if there's subrogation with insurance, we have the appropriate amount in our fee schedule so that we can recuperate an amount from someone's insurance company as well, and the city isn't out money in those areas. Those are the fee changes that are proposed with Ordinance 25-15. Are there any questions?
Council, any questions?
No. Mayor, thank you.
Sure.
Tracy, the fire service fees that for unincorporated areas, is that how did that come about? Did they ask us to do that, the county or the state, and how often?
I believe the counties approached us and asked us to, through an interlocal agreement or memorandum of understanding, to be able to provide those services for them for a fee. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
My question is piggybacking on that. Is the county also the entity, or are there other multiple entities that would ever be renting out the fire training tower? Who's
Other
renting that?
entities do lease out the fire training tower. I believe we're the only one in the county, and so other fire services do come and participate in training activities there.
Okay. Any other questions?
Okay.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I know Weston's going to be presenting our next item, which is an annexation request for the Love Valley View area.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Before you tonight is a proposal for an annexation that is 2.096 acres located approximately 940 North East Side Drive. The petitioner is Eric Craythorne, who's representing the property owner, Craythorne Development. The purpose of this annexation petition is to begin the process for a residential subdivision in the RS residential subdivision zone. Following the adoption of this resolution, staff will initiate the necessary annexation procedures as outlined in state code. Staff recommends the City Council adopt Resolution 2514 to certify the petition for the annexation and direct staff to initiate the necessary annexation procedures. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, Council, do you have any questions on this? This is just step one of 3 that they have to go through?
This is step 2.
Step 2?
We're accepting the we're accepting the certification.
Okay.
I have a question.
Sure.
Mayor. This, the sensitive lands area as well?
The sensitive lands area. So it might be a little while before you see this come back to you for a full annexation and rezone request.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. Well, thank you very much. That I appreciate you guys making your presentation. That pretty much concludes our consent items. So, Council, I'll bring it back to you for action regarding Ordinance 2515 and Resolution 25-14.
Madam Mayor, I move that we accept Ordinance 25-15, the amendment of the sewer rates and other fees, and then Resolution 25-14, the annexation request for Loves Valley View.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved in second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you very much. That passes unanimously. We'll now go on to our public hearing portion of our meeting. We do have 5 items on the agenda tonight. We'll start out with Mr. Probert, who will present the adoption of the budget for the fiscal year ending 24-25, or amending, I should say.
So, Mayor, members of the council, tonight we have Ordinance 25-14 to amend the current year, which is fiscal year 2024-2025 budget. We have to do that every year towards the end of the year to make sure that everything's in line by state law. To summarize the amendments that are proposed, in the general fund, there's $1.8 million, just over that, in net additions and reductions to the budget. $500,000 of that is appropriation of fund balance. Of that, I will admit that about $300,000 of that is a correction of something that I did with the original budget. The budget was there. I took some out. Now I had to put it back in, and I had to do that through an official action. So really, there's only about $200,000 in appropriation of fund balance other than the original budget. Aside from that, you can see that there's $1.1 million in revenue that came into the city that we didn't originally have an estimate for, or we weren't able to anticipate how much that would be. That's in areas of wildland fire protection, police special services, the fire academy, and then other small donations. We also had $179,000 and a little in grant revenue that was unanticipated or for which we didn't have a preliminary estimate. And so those are the areas within the general fund that amendments are proposed to the current year budget. In other funds throughout the city, we have the Building Services Fund, $359,000, Class C Road Fund, $200,000, Davis Metro, $100,000, the Prop 1 Transit Fund, $286,000, and so on down the list. I don't know that I need to read the entire list to you, but you can see the various areas where different projects or other sources of revenue for which we did not have an original estimate came in throughout the year, and so an amendment to our budget is necessary in order to be in compliance with state law. Are there any questions regarding any of these amendments?
Any questions? Tracy, I'll just bring up what I asked in the work meeting, just for the benefit of the public. So, and you explained it very well here, that there are times when we don't have the data, I guess, or the information to say how much something is necessarily going to be. So you budget, you plan for it, and then when we get that information, we have to make adjustments to that. And so would you say that these items here are items of that nature, which is why you have all of these definitions here? Something came in, and now we have to make an amendment because we now know what the figures actually are.
Correct.
And then where we put any of that excess revenue that comes back, where do we put those funds, and what do we generally do with them?
If there's excess revenue, then that will, in the general fund, it will go to our general fund reserve account, and along with all these other funds. If there was actually excess revenue through that transaction, then it would fall to the reserve account and again would come back to the council in a subsequent year to be appropriated towards whatever the goals were for that year. For the most part, in these amendments, though, the city will front the expense because something comes up or there's a program, for example, wildland fire. You don't know when we're going to go out on one of those, right? But someone will call Layton and they'll say, hey, we can use you, a team of your people in southern Utah on this wildland fire. And then through the federal government or state funds, the city is reimbursed. And we do actually make a little bit of money on that, on those transactions. So it's not that city resources are just going out for free. I think if the chief were here, he would tell you something like that is extremely good hands-on training for his personnel because they get to experience the actual fire, right? And then they can bring that experience back here, and then they can use it if that occurs here in the city and they have expertise. But for the most part, we'll spend the funds, send the people to go do the thing, and then we'll get reimbursed for that. Same with grants. The grants that I mentioned that we don't have an estimate for, a grant opportunity will come up, we'll be awarded the grant, we spend the city funds, and then we apply for reimbursement of those funds. So those are just two examples. But
So thanks. I just wanted to applaud what you do, and also the city generally does pay for those items up front, like you mentioned, and so that's why we don't have a whole lot of bonds and raising of taxes and things like that, because we try to put the money that we have to good use, and then if there are other options to get reimbursed for that, then that's what we apply for. So thanks for explaining that.
Right, no problem.
Mayor?
Questions?
Yeah.
Yes.
Thanks. Tracy, to that, you mentioned the fund balances. Maybe for the benefit of those listening, we have reserve accounts or reserve balances. We have to have at least 5%, I believe.
Correct.
Up to 35%?
Up to 35 in the general fund, yes.
And so for rainy day funds and for other reasons, but there is a reason to keep those reserve funds. So just to maybe explain what kind of I guess maybe you can with when we talk about the budget, maybe where we are as far as a percentage during that time.
Sure,
That's okay.
we can do that during the budget, sure.
Thanks.
Yep. Uh-huh.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, I know this is a public hearing, so we can go ahead and open up the public hearing at this time and see if there's any comments regarding these amendments. So I look for a motion.
I move that we open the public hearing for ordinance 25-14.
Okay. Is there a second? Thank you. All in favor? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, the time is now yours. If you wish to comment on item A of our public hearing, which is amending our adopted budget for the 24-25 year. Okay, seeing that there's none, I'm going to go ahead and bring it back to the council. We can go ahead and leave the public hearing open because we have several others, but let's go ahead and take action on this particular item.
And Madam Mayor, I move that we approve ordinance 25-14.
Okay.
A second.
It's been moved in second that we approve ordinance 25-14. I need a roll call vote on this. Councilmember Thomas.
Aye.
Councilmember Smith Edmondson. Aye. Councilman Morris.
Aye.
And Councilmember Boxam.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. That passes. Let's go on to item number B then, which Mr. Probert's going to present this item as well, which is our proposed budget for the 25-26 year.
So up front, I can address your question, Mayor, members of the council, about reserves in the general fund. And so we can maintain as a city our reserve balance, or as you mentioned, rainy day fund, I guess we could call it, between 5% of revenues and 35% of revenues. I think it would be important for the citizens to know that for the most part, Layton City tries to keep our reserves around 15%. We feel like that's an adequate amount of reserve, but it also does not abuse the citizens by maintaining more of their money than we actually need or feel that we need based on our financial situation. Not to throw other cities under the bus, right? I won't name any, but there are a number of cities in the state that keep their reserves at the max no matter what. And in crisis times, they'll lay people off, and then they'll bring people back on, right? And they'll raise taxes, and they'll do whatever they have to do to maintain 35% at all times. And that just simply isn't the way we function here in the city. We ask for what we need to maintain an excellent city, right? And but we don't hold more of the citizens' cash than we feel is necessary. Although it is important to keep a healthy reserve because we don't want to have to go back to the citizens in an emergency situation and, you know, increase taxes in an extreme way all of a sudden when we could have been hopefully planning for that in advance. Anyway, that may be a longer answer than you wanted, but I think that it shows that we do a conservative and good job with the citizens' money, yet also try and plan for those emergencies that could happen. Tonight I have ordinance 25-13 to adopt. I have maybe the only copy so far of the of the budget book. We used to print out a stack of these, and now it's just online, right? So you can see it online and so forth. But we bring that budget to you tonight, and just a quick overview. First off, as I kind of alluded to, the budget does not include a property tax increase for 2025-2026, which runs July 1st of this year until June 30th of next year. The general fund budget is just over $48 million, almost $49 million. The total citywide budget, which includes the utility funds, which make up most of the difference, $129.8 million. The budget does include a market cost of living and merit adjustment for the officers and employees of the city. That would be the municipal executive officers, not the council and mayor officers. There's $2.9 million in capital equipment, $23.6 million in capital projects, the majority of which are in the utility funds. I mentioned already the sewer rate increase by North Davis Sewer of $2.50 and the city side of that at $2.64. Major projects included, we're still working on the Emergency Communications Dispatch Center that's across the parking lot here, in case anybody wondered what that construction activity is. And most of that funding, I would mention also, is federal funding from CARES Act and ARPA, the city matching, you know, what we needed to in that. There's also the swimming pool dome project that's in these funds, part of the ramp funds, parks project, street maintenance, and as I mentioned already, utility projects. Briefly, we can see the city revenue breakdown with a big chunk of that being sales tax. And so the city is positioned very well to benefit from having our neighbors come and shop in our city. And so we benefit greatly from that, having all of the different stores and amenities that we have here, restaurants and different things, so that the citizens actually benefit from having everyone around us come here to do their shopping and so forth. The charges for services section is mostly utility funds, and then there's some other taxes and things on there that make up smaller portions of the budget. You'll note that property tax makes up less than 9% of the total budget. As far as expenditures go, compensation makes up 44% of that. This is citywide, not just the general fund. Operations, just under 30%, capital projects, 20%, and so on. In the general fund, we can see that sales tax makes up a much larger portion of the general fund, almost 54%. Property tax making up 22% of the general fund. And then there's a number of other items on there that make up our total revenue in the general fund. As far as expenditures go, we have our police department making up 35%. In a previous meeting, Chief Mon told us of the fact that fire is made up of two separate funds, that's covered by the general fund, and then the emergency medical services fund, which is outside of the general fund. So it's not to say that police is gigantic compared to fire. They're very similar in size as far as the amount of expenditure that goes there. And then we have your other mostly administrative departments, but public works and parks and recreation, a significant amount of funding going towards those as well. That would be my brief summary of our 106-page book of budget. I would point out that in the very front section of the budget book, or if anyone would go online to look at the budget, there, about page 2 through 6, there's some summary financial statements. And they're probably the best place to look just to see, if you know how to look at financial statements, then you could see an income statement more or less in budget form that could tell you where the city stands. Are there any questions related to the budget, property tax rate, and compensation schedules?
Any questions, council?
I just want to state that this is the second time that this has been prepared or is available to us for public hearing. So we've seen this, we saw this last time. So thank you again for presenting today.
Okay, you bet.
Okay. If there's no questions by the council, is there any questions within the audience that wish to address item B? Okay, seeing that there's no questions, I'll go ahead and bring it back to the council then to take action regarding the proposed budget or ordinance 25-13. We opened up.
Yeah, public hearing, it's already open.
It and
yeah.
we kept it open.
It's already open.
I know that we kind of bounced, but tonight we're keeping it all open, but we'll vote on each one as we go along. Yeah, no problem. Okay. So, council, then I'll bring it back to you for action.
I'd like to approve the ordinance, if I can see it, 25-13. Which is our proposed budget.
Okay, it's been moved in second that we approve or adopt our proposed budget. Once again, this is a roll call item, so I'll start down here with Councilman Bloxham.
Aye.
Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Councilman Smith-Edmondson.
Aye.
And Councilmember Thomas.
Yes.
Okay, there you have it. It passes unanimously. Okay, that takes care of item A and B. We'll go on to item C of our public hearing. And Weston's going to actually present the next three items, but we'll start out with the first one is the easement vacation for the TZAC subdivision.
Thank you again, Mayor and Council. Before you tonight is an application brought to us by Phil Holland, who's representing the HR Rosewood LLC group. He's requesting to vacate 4 public utility easements on these properties. This is located at 876 East Rosewood Lane. and 942 East Rosewood Lane. So I just wanted to give you a general overview of the easements that would be vacated. There's a blue easement there that's a 5-foot public utility easement, a green easement that's a 10-foot public utility easement, and then 2 7-foot that are side-by-side public utility easements. The purpose of this is for a subdivision to then take over this area. So these easements would be vacated, and then a new subdivision would be put in place with the easements that are standard for those subdivision lots. This is just a layout of the subdivision, and it's standard subdivision practice to have easements around all 4 sides of the lots. Staff recommends the council adopt ordinance 2517 to vacate the certain public utility easements, public utility and drainage easements, located at 876 and 942 East Rosewood Lane, subject to meeting all city requirements and conditions outlined in the staff memo. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay. Council, do you have any questions on this?
The question I have is, assuming this gets approved, how long is the process for something like this 6-lot subdivision?
As soon as they're ready to record.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, seeing that there are none, I'm going to go ahead and open it up for our public to make any comments regarding item number C on our public hearing. Once again, make sure you state your name.
Hello, I am Catherine Martinez. I reside at 957 East, 250 South in Layton, which in conjunction to this property, it is the directly south of this new subdivision and connected on this map behind us on the very right corner. The Holmes Creek accesses our property and divides 4 of the lots behind the subdivision, and there is a gate behind my lot which we have to access from Rosewood rather than 250. We've had to regularly use that gate to access the property that I reside on that is divided by that creek. My house sits on the south side. My backyard is on the north side. There's the creek in the middle. So the only way to get to that backside, which we've had to do maintenance regarding the retaining walls for that creek. I understand we don't have any water rights, but as the resident of and owner of the property, we do have to shore both sides of those of the creek, which ensures the safety of our property. We've had flooding issues. That is where we have access to drop sand off for sandbagging. I've had, like I said, lots of large equipment that has had to access through there. There's 4 houses along that side, if I didn't mention that already, that utilize that easement. It's been horse property. We love that. I welcome the new subdivision. I just hope that there is a way that we can come to an agreement or a mutual understanding that there is most likely going to be more maintenance. If you're not familiar with that area, it's much like Layton City Park here along the creek. We have very large cottonwood trees. We're not immune to wind in this area. We've had trees fall over. We have to maintain those, top them, keep them healthy in order to ensure the safety of people, houses, property. So I just would ask that we put a pause on any vacating easements for further review and consideration. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, anyone else? Okay, any questions, Council?
Yeah, can you answer?
So this subdivision has gone through the subdivision review process. This would just be vacating the easements to allow the new ones to be put in place. As far as maintenance, let me see if I can look at the mouse and see if I can zoom in on that a little.
While he's doing that, I'm just going to make a comment. I can't remember what she mentioned the nature of the easement was. If it's a private easement, that doesn't have anything to do with us, and that wouldn't be impacted by whatever happens here. A public utility easement, as Weston has explained, whatever is vacated here is just to allow for the development of that property. There will be new public utility and drainage easements that will be included with the new development, which I think is what you're about to zoom in on right now.
Yeah, that's accurate. And this is the area that we're talking about. This is that you can see Zone X. This is the floodway and the way the creek runs. And that is accurate. And the public utility easements is all we're talking about. And that's a standard easement. We're not talking about any additional easements that are associated with the property or private easements.
So if there were a private easement or private easements, that wouldn't. We don't really have anything to do with those. That would be something between two private property owners. We don't get involved in private easements. And so that would be something that would be if they have that would be a right that they could assert against that property owner or have a discussion with about that to the property owner.
So I think the question becomes the access point, though. Does the access point remain the same on their property? Right?
Yeah, I don't know.
That's what
I
she
don't
was
know
trying to-
where the access point is now. I think that's this. I've never heard of this before. Have you guys heard of this?
I've not heard of this issue, no.
Which one is it? Did you say Martinez?
I believe, is this your property? Is this correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
And the creek goes through
Maybe if you could come up to the mic, so yeah. You can come over to this side so he can stay at the mic there.
My property is the one that is coming to a point in between 5 and 4, correct. And the creek goes through the bottom corner of Lot 5, and then it makes a sharp turn and comes south down my neighbor to the east property, and then in my yard makes another turn and heads back south. And we enter from Rosewood, approximately where that new little drive is, or cul-de-sac, and we would drive through Lot 4, and then that shortest section of Lot 4 on the right side is right where our gate is. So the drainage, I tried to get information. I contacted the information on the public notice and didn't get a response because I wasn't sure where the easements for the county is located, but I'm assuming it's where the cement block drainage is, which is right at the corner of my property.
Do you know if you have a recorded easement?
Private?
Yeah, or just an easement that, meaning that there's some sort of a document that describes that?
I don't know if there is one in place. I just have coordinated with the previous owners. I've lived at that property for 21 years, owned that house. So we've just coordinated with those property owners whenever it's needed.
So, Mayor, I think in this one, it might be good to table this and allow us to have those discussions with the developer. And like I said, we don't always get involved. We don't get involved in private easement discussions, but without knowing more about it, I'd like to know more.
I think that's pretty critical, knowing that this is the Case Creek, and there is maintenance all the way along that creek, so there's got to be some point of entrance, I believe.
Yeah, so I would recommend that the council just table this to a future agenda, allow us to take a look at it, have some conversations with the developer and other property owners to make sure that they're at least communicating.
Okay, that's fair. Okay, with that, is there any other comment before I bring it back to the council then? Okay, seeing that there's none, council, I would need you to make a formal action based upon the recommendation from our attorney.
Madam Mayor, I move that we table item C, the easement vacation, which is ordinance 25-17, to a future council meeting to give staff time to, do I need to have an actual date? Or do I say a date uncertain?
No, that's fine.
You're not online.
It's a public hearing, so we just probably
Could just leave the public hearing open and
continue
not
it as a
have to-
yeah, continue the public hearing as well.
Okay.
So in addition, so table this and continue, or just continue the public hearing and not take action on item C?
Yeah, that's fine. Continue and not take action.
Okay. All right, Madam Mayor, I move that we keep the public hearing open for ordinance 25-17 and continue this item to a later date.
Okay.
To give staff time to coordinate with the developer and the homeowners to get more information.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved in second that we table item C at this time. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. We will do that then and go ahead and move on to item D, which is another easement vacation for for a lot 8 of East Layton Hills, subdivision number 6.
Correct. Thank you, Mayor. This is at, as you said, East Layton Hills, number 6. The applicant is Keith Bennett. The purpose of this the vacation of the public utility and drainage easement is to realign a property line. So the green is where the existing easement exists, and that's a public utility easement running on both sides of the property line. So the property line runs in the middle of that green, and it would be shifting to the orange. So this is technically a flag lot. It's kind of a weird shaped lot. But their purpose of this is to do an addition to the side of their home. So it allows them to have the room to be able to complete the addition that they're looking to do. Staff recommends the council adopt ordinance 2518 to vacate this public utility and drainage easement and locate easement located at 2025 and 2033 East Dan Drive, Lot 7 and Lot 8, East Layton Hills, number 6, subject to meeting all city requirements and conditions as outlined in the staff memorandum. Any questions?
Okay. Any questions on this?
I'm on a roll tonight.
That's okay.
I just wanted to know if the owner is the same for both lots?
Yes.
Okay.
Makes it simple. Okay, any other questions? Okay, how about any public comments? Does anyone wish to comment on this item? Okay, seeing that there's no comment, let me go ahead and bring it back to the council to go ahead and make a decision on item D, which is ordinance 25-18.
Madam Mayor, I move that we approve ordinance 25-18.
Okay, is there a second? Okay, it's been moved in second on this. Once again, I'll do a roll call vote on this then. So let's start out with Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Councilman Smith Edmondson.
Aye.
Councilman Thomas.
Aye.
And Councilman Bloxham.
Yes.
Okay, there you have it. It's unanimous. Okay, we'll go on to item number E, which is our last public hearing item. Once again, it's a vacation for Lot 68 of the Layton Industrial Park, subdivision number 2.
The applicant is Blake Madsen, and they are representing Liberty Rentals, and they are requesting to vacate 3 public utility easements along the property located at 820 North Marshall Way, also known as Lot 68 of the Layton Industrial Park. Amendment 2. What would be vacated here is a 5-foot public utility and drainage easement along the north of the property line, which is the top part of your screen, a 5-foot public utility and drainage easement along the eastern portion, and a 12.5-foot public and utility drainage easement along the south property line. This is allowing them room to construct the buildings that they're wanting to construct. It also is coming into compliance with our requirements for public utility easements on commercial properties. Typically, we don't have this many on commercial properties. There is one easement that is staying, and as I get older, it's hard for me to read that, but it's that bottom easement. It is I believe it's a sewer easement that it's in favor of the adjacent property.
Storm drain.
Storm drain. Thank you, Mayor. Staff recommends the council adopt ordinance 2516 to vacate certain public utility and drainage easements located at 820 North Marshall Way, Lot 68, Layton Industrial Park Amendment Number 2 subdivision, subject to meeting all city requirements and conditions as outlined in the staff memorandum.
Okay. Any questions, council? Nope. Okay. How about any comments from the audience? Okay, seeing that there's none, I'll go ahead and bring it back to the council for action on item number E.
Madam Mayor, I move that we adopt ordinance 2516, the easement vacation of Lot 68 of the Layton Industrial Park Amendment to Number 2 subdivision.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved in second. And once again, I'll do a roll call vote on this. Let's start off with Councilmember Smith-Edmondson.
Aye.
Okay, Councilmember Morris.
Aye.
Councilmember Thomas. And Councilmember Bloxham.
Yes.
Oh, there you have it. Okay, that pretty much concludes our public hearing. However, we do need to close it. We do have one item that will remain open, so who's ever willing to make the motion to close our public hearing, please also state that we will keep item C opened. Challenge.
Madam Mayor, I move that we close the public hearing for ordinance 25-14, 25-13, 25-18, and 25-16, and leave the public hearing open for ordinance 25-17, as previously stated.
Perfect. Thank you. Is there a second on that?
Second.
Okay. I will acknowledge this. You want to take let's just say, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, there you have it. We will close our public hearing at this time. That's actually our last item on our agenda for tonight, unless there's any unfinished business. Council, do you have any unfinished business you'd like to discuss at this time?
Well, it's only 8:14, so
Yeah.
I'm sorry. We have to stay here longer.
The only thing that I'll mention is obviously we have our July 4th holiday coming up. We do have a council meeting the night before. However, depending on how much information, at this time it doesn't look like we have enough to really hold a council meeting. So I would say that the chances of us having that public hearing, that council meeting are probably slim. So unless you guys want to go ahead and take action right now and say that we'll not have that not have our council meeting for July 3rd.
I make a motion we don't have our council meeting on July 3rd, and I also maybe they're two separate, to adjourn the meeting as soon as we vote on that.
Okay. Yeah. So, Council, are you good with this?
I don't think you need to vote on it. Just if that works, then that's great.
Yeah. I'd say, are we good with that? If that be the case, I do know that there's a lot of preparation the night before that, unfortunately, Councilmember Roberts is not here, and myself, I know we could use some help getting ready for the popsicles. So we will still be able to at least help out the city that way. Okay. Then I will acknowledge that motion to adjourn.
With a second.
Okay, with a second. So all in favor?
Aye.
What's your vote? Yay, he's in on the action. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for attending our council meeting this evening, and we hope you have a safe evening and weekend.